When we look at the map of Europe during World War II, it seems almost impossible that tiny Switzerland managed to remain independent while Nazi Germany swallowed nearly every nation around it. By 1940, Hitler controlled Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark and Norway. Yet in the middle of this storm sat Switzerland, untouched. The question has fascinated historians and survivalists alike. Why didn't Hitler invade Switzerland when it was right there in the heart of his empire? The answer is not a simple one. It involves geography, economics, strategy and psychology, and understanding it reveals just how complex survival can be in times of overwhelming power. Switzerland's geography made it a natural fortress. The Swiss Alps were more than just mountains. They were walls of stone that made any invasion costly. Hitler's military thrived on speed and mobility. Blitzkrieg depended on tanks, mechanized infantry, and rapid air support. Switzerland's jagged peaks and narrow valleys would have neutralized those advantages. The Swiss military planned for this exact scenario. They called it the National Redoubt strategy. If Germany invaded, Swiss forces would retreat into the mountains, blow bridges and tunnels, and fortify high-altitude positions. With limited flat ground to maneuver, German divisions would have faced a grueling uphill battle where tanks and trucks were useless. For Hitler, who relied on swift campaigns to keep his enemies off balance, the idea of bogging down in endless mountain warfare made little sense. The lesson here is timeless. Sometimes survival is not about size, but about terrain and preparation. Another reason Hitler hesitated was the armed neutrality of the Swiss people. Unlike other small nations that folded quickly under German pressure, Switzerland had universal conscription. Every adult male trained as part of the militia and kept his weapon at home. That meant nearly 500,000 men could be mobilized within days, not months. In June of 1940, as France collapsed, Switzerland mobilized more than 430,000 troops. The message was clear. Even if they couldn't win outright, they could make an invasion so costly that it just wasn't worth the effort. German generals knew this too. They estimated that conquering Switzerland could tie down more than 10 divisions. Men and equipment Hitler needed on the Eastern Front and in occupied France. This was deterrence through preparedness, a principle any survivalist understands. Being visibly ready discourages aggression before it even begins. Military strategy alone does not explain the decision. Switzerland was also financially valuable to Nazi Germany. Swiss banks handled gold transactions, some of which came from plundered territories, allowing the Reich to trade on international markets despite sanctions. The Swiss franc was a stable currency, and Switzerland acted as an economic middleman, importing goods that Germany otherwise could not easily access. By allowing Switzerland to remain officially neutral, Germany kept open a discreet financial lifeline. Invading the country might have secured its banks physically, but it would have shut down the very international transactions Germany needed. In this way, neutrality was more profitable than conquest. This really shows how survival sometimes depends not on force, but on making yourself more useful intact than destroyed. Switzerland's neutrality also gave Hitler indirect benefits. It served as a diplomatic channel where messages could pass between Axis and Allied powers through backdoor negotiations. Intelligence networks also operated across its borders. Both Germany and the Allies used Switzerland as a spy hub. By keeping it neutral, Germany could monitor Allied movements, trade information, and even mask some of its own operations. Had Hitler overrun Switzerland, the Reich would have lost this unique space where enemies met under a fragile umbrella of neutrality. Maintaining that small neutral zone in the middle of Europe was strategically more flexible than occupying it outright. For those studying history with an eye toward practical application, this highlights how sometimes leaving a resource untouched provides greater long-term gain than seizing it immediately. Swiss defence strategy relied heavily on denial. The Redoubt plan called for destroying infrastructure rather than allowing it to fall into German hands. Bridges, tunnels and railways, the very things Hitler would have wanted for troop movement through Central Europe, would have been blown apart by retreating Swiss forces. Instead of gaining a transportation corridor, Germany would have been left with wreckage. Furthermore, Switzerland's central location meant that any invasion would require Germany to commit troops in every direction, from France to Italy to Austria. This dispersion weakened the very principle of concentrated force that Hitler depended on. German war planners calculated that the gains would not outweigh the risks. In survival terms, this was Switzerland's equivalent of scorched earth. Deny the attacker the benefits of conquest, even if it means destroying your own assets. Finally, Hitler simply had bigger ambitions. By 1940, he was planning Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Every tank, every soldier, and every gallon of fuel was needed for the push east. Switzerland was a thorn in his side, but honestly, just a small one. Compared to the oil fields of the Caucasus or the industrial heartlands of Russia, the Swiss mountains were really of minor value. Invading Switzerland risked heavy casualties, destroyed infrastructure, and a long insurgency, all while delaying the larger campaigns that Hitler believed would win the war. By prioritizing expansion eastward, Hitler left Switzerland alone, not out of mercy, but because his eyes were set on bigger prizes. Switzerland survived World War II not by chance, but by combining geography, preparedness, economic leverage, and strategic usefulness. The Swiss mountains offered natural defence, the militia made invasion costly, the banks provided financial services to Germany, and neutrality created diplomatic and intelligence value. For Hitler, the cost of invasion outweighed the benefits. For history enthusiasts, the story reveals how even a small country surrounded by enemies can secure survival through preparation and positioning. And for survivalists, the lesson is equally clear. Strengthen your defences, make yourself costly to attack, and ensure that your value is greater alive than destroyed. If this exploration gave you a new perspective on Switzerland's untold World War II strategy, make sure you subscribe to In the Beginning and share this with fellow history buffs. The more we uncover the overlooked decisions of the past, the better prepared we are to understand the choices that shape our world today.